When we talk about intimacy, most people assume that physical closeness automatically implies emotional connection. We imagine that if two people share a bed, they must also share the deeper layers of vulnerability that come with it. But the truth is far more complex. There are women who will allow physical intimacy without offering that one simple, tender gesture that for many symbolizes true closeness, a kiss. And the first reason behind this is emotional detachment, a kind of mental separation between body and heart. Now, when I say emotional detachment, I don't mean coldness or cruelty. I'm talking about a deliberate, sometimes unconscious decision to place a barrier between physical availability and emotional openness. It's a psychological wall, and it can be built for many reasons. Past betrayals, repeated heartbreaks, trust that was once given freely but was met with disappointment. Over time, some women learn to compartmentalize, to say, I can share my body, but my emotions are my own, and they are not for everyone. You see, a kiss is not just lips touching. A kiss, for many people, is an unspoken contract. It says, I'm letting you into my personal emotional space. It's an exchange of energy, of breath, of intention. And for some women, that is far more intimate than any other physical act. They may be willing to engage in sex without a kiss because sex, in that context, becomes an act of the body, something that can be physical without being deeply emotional. But a kiss, that's a doorway to the soul, and not everyone gets to walk through it. Think about it this way. When someone has been hurt, their survival instinct is to protect what is most precious. And often, that's not the body, it's the heart. Emotional detachment becomes a shield. The woman may enjoy physical intimacy, she may even crave human connection, but she decides that certain expressions of affection, like kissing, are too closely tied to trust and love. And if that trust hasn't been earned, the kiss is withheld. Now, this might sound contradictory to some of you. You might ask, but isn't sex more intimate than a kiss? On the surface, yes, sex involves more physical vulnerability. But here's the psychological twist: physical vulnerability and emotional vulnerability are not the same. Many people can be physically intimate while remaining emotionally distant. In fact, emotional intimacy often feels riskier because it's harder to guard against. Once someone truly reaches your emotions, they can affect you in ways you can't easily control. And that's what a kiss represents to certain women. Not just physical touch, but surrendering a piece of emotional control. Without realizing it, they're making a distinction. You can have my body, but you cannot yet have my soul. For some, this separation comes from a place of empowerment. They believe they can decide the terms of their intimacy, controlling which parts of themselves they give and which they withhold. For others, it's not so much a conscious decision as it is a reflex born from past experiences. They've been through relationships where love was promised but not honored, where vulnerability was taken advantage of. And so now, they reserve the kiss for those they feel truly deserve it, those who have proven themselves emotionally safe. This is why understanding emotional detachment is so important. It's not about labeling someone as cold or uncaring. It's about recognizing that everyone has their own boundaries, shaped by their own history. And in many cases, a woman's refusal to kiss while engaging in intimacy is less about the person she's with and more about the journey she's been on before that moment. Here's where it becomes even more interesting. In some cases, emotional detachment is not a sign of weakness or fear. It's a form of emotional intelligence. It's a way of saying, I know myself well enough to know when I am ready to connect deeply and when I am not. We live in a world that often pressures people, especially women, into giving every part of themselves quickly. But the truth is, taking time to protect certain pieces of yourself is not selfish, it's wise. That said, emotional detachment can also be a double-edged sword. While it can protect a woman from unnecessary hurt, it can also keep her from experiencing the depth of connection she might secretly crave. A wall that once served as a shield can, over time, become a prison. And this is why self-awareness is key. Understanding why the detachment exists allows someone to decide whether it's still serving them or whether it's holding them back. So, if you've ever been with someone who gave you their body but not their kiss, remember this: the kiss is not missing because of you. It's not necessarily a rejection. Sometimes, it's simply a sign that you've encountered a part of them they do not give away lightly. If you truly want that kiss, if you truly want that deeper connection, it's not about pressing harder physically. It's about earning trust emotionally. And for the women listening, I say this: there is nothing wrong with protecting your emotional world. But also remember, the greatest experiences in life, the kind that truly fill your soul, often require a leap of vulnerability. Protect yourself, yes, but also know when to open the gate and let someone in. Not because they've demanded it, but because you've decided they're worth it. Emotional detachment can be a sign of strength, but strength isn't just about holding the walls. It's also about knowing when to let them fall. Sometimes the kiss you're afraid to give is the very thing that could open a chapter of love and connection far richer than anything you've known before. So, the next time you think about that line between body and heart, ask yourself, is this detachment still protecting me? Or is it simply preventing me from feeling fully alive? The answer to that question might just change everything. When we talk about the distinction between sharing the body and sharing the heart, it's important to understand that for many women, intimacy isn't a single dimension. It's layered like a structure built over years of emotional experiences. And among all those layers, kissing occupies a special place. It's not just an action, it's a form of surrender. That's why some women, even in moments of deep physical intimacy, will deliberately avoid it. They are protecting the heart while sharing the body. You see, sex, in certain contexts, can be an act that exists in a compartment, something the body participates in, without necessarily inviting the full engagement of the heart. But a kiss, especially a deep and intentional one, blurs that separation. It opens a door. And once that door is open, feelings have a way of slipping through, uninvited, uncontrollable, and sometimes unstoppable. For some women, the kiss is the moment where intimacy stops being just physical. It becomes something that binds. It carries with it a level of closeness that the body alone cannot replicate. And because of that, it becomes dangerous territory if they're not ready for emotional attachment. This isn't about being manipulative or cold, it's about being careful. Sometimes painfully careful. The human mind has an extraordinary way of protecting itself from what it perceives as risk. And for many, the risk isn't just the possibility of a relationship failing. It's the fear of getting attached to someone who doesn't deserve that attachment in the first place. Avoiding the kiss allows the woman to keep her emotions contained, to set an invisible limit on how much of herself she's willing to give away in that moment. It's the difference between swimming in shallow water and diving into the depths. Think about it. We often underestimate how powerful a kiss can be. It's not only about physical sensation, it's about emotional exchange. When lips meet, there's often an unspoken acknowledgement of closeness, of connection, of being this together. And for someone who's guarding her heart, that acknowledgement can feel like a commitment she's not prepared to make. In some cases, this protective instinct is born from experience. Maybe she's been in situations where kissing led to deeper feelings that ultimately brought pain. Or maybe she's been in relationships where physical intimacy was used as a tool, but emotional intimacy was withheld, leaving her to learn that the safest way to avoid being hurt is to control how much emotional investment she makes in the first place. There's also another layer to this, the fear of giving someone the wrong signal. A kiss can communicate affection, romance, even love, messages that she might not want to send if the relationship is purely physical or undefined. By withholding the kiss, she keeps the emotional waters clear, maintaining a separation between what the body experiences and what the heart feels. But here's the paradox. Protecting the heart in this way can be both empowering and limiting. On one hand, it allows a woman to move at her own pace, to guard her emotions until she feels genuinely ready. On the other hand, it can also prevent her from experiencing the very connections that give intimacy its deepest meaning. Because the truth is, no matter how hard we try, love and connection often require some level of risk, and the kiss is often the first leap into that risk. Now, for anyone listening who has ever felt confused by this behavior, who has wondered why someone could share the most vulnerable parts of their body, but not the simplest act of affection, I want you to understand that it's not about the absence of desire. It's about the presence of boundaries. It's about the unspoken understanding that the heart is not a toy to be passed around lightly. For the women who find themselves holding back the kiss, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. You have every right to protect yourself. You have every right to decide who earns not just your body, but your trust. But I will say this: be honest with yourself about why you're doing it. Is it because the person in front of you hasn't earned that level of connection? Or is it because the past has made you afraid to let anyone in at all? Because here's the hard truth: if the reason is fear, then you might be holding yourself back from experiences that could be beautiful, transformative, and deeply fulfilling. You might be avoiding the kind of connection that reminds you why intimacy, at its best, is not just about bodies meeting, but souls touching. There's wisdom in caution, but there's also a quiet tragedy in never allowing yourself to feel fully. Protecting your heart can keep it safe, yes, but a heart that's too well guarded can also grow lonely in ways no amount of physical closeness can cure. So maybe the next time you find yourself in a moment where the body says yes, but the heart says not too close, ask yourself, is this boundary serving me right now? Or is it only serving the fear I carry? And if it's fear, is that fear still necessary? Or has it overstayed its welcome in your life? Because there's a delicate balance between protecting your heart and closing it off completely. And only you can know when it's time to shift from one to the other. In the end, intimacy is not just about what you give. It's about how you give it and to whom. But remember this: sometimes the kiss you hold back is the very bridge between loneliness and connection, between guardedness and trust. And bridges are meant to be crossed, not just admired from a distance. By now, we've explored the emotional layers, how detachment can protect the heart, and how withholding a kiss can be a conscious act of guarding emotional vulnerability. But not every decision to avoid kissing in moments of intimacy is born from heartbreak or fear. Sometimes it's not about wounds from the past at all. Sometimes it's about something even more fundamental, deeply ingrained cultural or personal boundaries. Every one of us grows up with a framework, a set of invisible rules that shapes how we interpret and navigate the world. These rules are built from our upbringing, our environment, our faith, the stories we're told, and the examples we see. They tell us what is acceptable, what is sacred, and what crosses the line. And for some women, kissing isn't just another physical act. It carries symbolic weight. It's tied to romance, love, and even long-term commitment. In some cultures, a kiss is not something casual. It's reserved for people who have earned the right to be in a deeply personal space. It's a gesture of purity and intention, something not to be thrown around lightly. While sex, in certain contexts, might be stripped of its symbolic meaning, sometimes even seen as an act that can occur outside emotional involvement, the kiss retains its place as an act of deep affection. Imagine a woman raised in a home where kissing was portrayed as the most romantic, love-filled part of a relationship. Perhaps she saw it in movies, where the kiss wasn't just a step in intimacy, it was the moment that cemented a bond. Perhaps her parents or community reinforced the idea that a kiss is an emotional declaration. In that kind of mindset, kissing without strong emotional connection feels unnatural. Even if her body is willing to be close, her mind draws a line. This gesture means more to me than the act itself, so I won't give it unless it's truly earned. And let's not forget that religion and spiritual beliefs also play a powerful role here. In certain faith traditions, physical intimacy might be treated as a separate, even lesser, category compared to acts like kissing. The kiss in these contexts is more than skin-to-skin contact. It's a covenantal expression. It's a signal that this connection is more than physical pleasure. It's emotional, spiritual, even moral. For someone holding those beliefs, withholding the kiss isn't a rejection of the person they're with. It's an act of staying true to a personal or divine code. There's also the influence of personal boundaries that aren't tied to culture or religion at all, but to self-identity. Some women develop their own rules over time, deciding which parts of themselves they want to give away easily and which parts they want to guard for someone truly special. For them, a kiss is personal property, an intimate gift they do not feel obligated to share with anyone who simply has access to their body. And here's something important. Just because a boundary isn't based on trauma doesn't make it any less powerful. Boundaries, no matter how they were formed, deserve respect. In fact, when someone honors their boundaries in the face of societal or partner pressure, it's a sign of self-awareness and self-respect. This is why rushing to judgment, assuming a woman who won't kiss during intimacy is cold, detached, or uninterested, is so misguided. Sometimes it's not about the person in front of her at all. It's about the person she's decided to be. Her choices are shaped by her sense of self, her values, and her understanding of what feels right for her life. And when you think about it, there's a certain beauty in that level of self-possession. But like every boundary, there's a balance to be struck. Because while boundaries protect us, they can also limit us if they're never examined. Just as someone can hide behind emotional detachment as a shield, a person can also cling to cultural or personal rules out of habit rather than conscious choice. And sometimes, those rules might be holding them back from experiences that could expand their life in beautiful ways. That's why self-reflection matters so much. If a woman is avoiding kissing because it goes against her values, then it's an act of alignment and integrity, and there's strength in that. But if she's doing it only because this is just how it's always been, without ever questioning whether those boundaries still serve her, then she risks living according to someone else's script rather than her own. And here's the thing: the people who live the richest, most fulfilling lives are those who consciously choose their boundaries instead of unconsciously inheriting them. They've asked themselves hard questions. They've re-evaluated old beliefs. They've decided actively what they're willing to share, when, and with whom. So, if you're someone who's been on the receiving end of this, if you've been with a woman who gave you her body, but not her kiss, understand that you may be brushing up against years of personal values, family teachings, or spiritual convictions. And in those cases, the question isn't, how do I get her to kiss me? The question is, do I respect her enough to understand why she won't? And for the women listening, I would say this: it's your right to have boundaries, and it's your right to live by them. But it's also your responsibility to know why you have them. Are they protecting you, or are they simply inherited habits you've never examined? Are they helping you live a life of integrity, or are they quietly keeping you from connecting with someone on a deeper level? Because here's the truth: life is too short to live by rules that aren't truly yours. And intimacy, at its best, isn't just about the merging of bodies, but about the meeting of values, trust, and authentic desire. If your boundaries reflect the person you want to be, hold them proudly. But if they don't, be brave enough to rewrite them. In the end, the kiss is just a gesture, but the meaning you attach to it is entirely yours to define. And that definition can either keep you safe or keep you from love. The choice always is yours. Sometimes the reasons a woman will give her body but withhold a kiss are not rooted in emotional detachment or even in cultural or personal boundaries. Sometimes the reason is far more private and far more tender to the touch. For some, the act of kissing awakens memories they would rather leave in the past. It's not about the present partner. It's not about what's happening in the moment. It's about what kissing represents to them, and what it has represented in the most painful chapters of their life. We often underestimate how powerful certain gestures can be in unlocking memory. A scent, a song, the texture of a hand, all of these can send the mind hurtling back to moments long buried. For some women, a kiss carries that same power. It may be tied to an early experience that was unwanted, coercive, or simply deeply uncomfortable. And while the body can move on from such experiences more quickly, the mind and the heart often take longer to release them. Trauma has a way of living quietly inside us. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers at the edges of our most vulnerable moments. And so, a woman might enjoy physical intimacy in ways that feel safe to her, yet avoid kissing because that particular act carries too much emotional weight, too much association with a time when she felt powerless or unsafe. And this is where empathy becomes crucial. If you encounter someone who is willing to share intimacy but avoids a kiss, understand that you may be stepping into a place where pain still lingers. The absence of that kiss may not be about you at all. It may be about an old wound that has nothing to do with your presence and everything to do with their past. You see, kissing is a deeply sensory experience. It's close, it's personal, It requires both people to meet in the same space, to breathe the same air, to exchange touch in a way that often feels more emotionally exposing than the act of sex itself. If trauma has left an imprint on that kind of closeness, the act can feel dangerous, not because the current partner poses a threat, but because the mind has learned to associate it with danger, discomfort, or loss of control. Now, some might wonder, but if trauma is the issue, why is she able to engage in sex at all? And the answer is that trauma doesn't always follow the rules we expect. For some, sexual acts that feel less emotionally charged may be easier to engage in because they can keep their guard up emotionally. But kissing, which demands emotional presence, which forces eye contact and shared breath, can feel far riskier. It's also worth remembering that trauma is not always about violent events. Sometimes it's about the first moments of intimacy in youth, moments that might have been rushed, awkward, or unreciprocated. These early experiences can shape what someone associates with certain acts, and those associations can last long into adulthood unless they're consciously unlearned. And here's the thing, healing is a deeply personal journey. No one can rush it. No one can demand it on their timeline. The willingness to kiss again after trauma is something that must come from within, and it often requires patience, understanding, and a partner who can hold space without judgment. But let's not only speak to the partner here. Let's also speak to the women who carry this history. If this is you, if kissing brings up memories you'd rather not face, I want you to know that your boundaries are valid. You have every right to protect yourself. And yet, I also want to remind you that your past does not have to be the master of your present. The truth is, unhealed wounds have a way of deciding for us. They influence who we let in, how close we get, and which parts of ourselves we share. And while it's okay to move slowly, it's also important to ask yourself whether the way you've built your intimacy is still serving you, or if it's quietly keeping you from experiencing closeness in the way you might truly want. Because at its best, kissing is not just an act, it's a moment of unity. It's a wordless conversation between two people saying, I am here with you, fully. And if you avoid it because it triggers something painful, that is a signal, not a sentence. A signal that there's something worth healing. Now, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. It means reclaiming your own ability to choose without fear. It means separating the present moment from the past memory. It means letting your body and heart know that it is safe again. And that's not an overnight process. But with the right support, whether from a partner, a therapist, or even a deep commitment to self-reflection, it's a process that can restore what was once taken away. For anyone who loves a woman carrying this kind of wound, the most powerful thing you can offer is patience. Don't push for the kiss. Don't make it a condition for your closeness. Instead, show through your actions that you are safe, trustworthy, and willing to meet her where she is. Often, safety is the bridge to healing, and healing is the bridge to intimacy. And for those who are living this reality themselves, I'll say this: you deserve to feel whole again. You deserve to experience intimacy without the shadow of the past standing between you and the present. The fact that you're even aware of why you withhold certain gestures is a sign of strength. It means you know yourself. And that knowledge can be the first step toward change if you want it. Because in the end, the kiss is not just about lips meeting. It's about letting someone stand close enough to touch not just your body, but the parts of you you've been afraid to share. And when you can give that, not because you feel pressured, but because you've decided it's safe, you'll know that your past no longer owns your future. We've talked about emotional detachment. We've talked about protecting the heart while sharing the body. We've looked at cultural and personal boundaries, and we've explored how past trauma can shape intimate choices. But there is another reason, one that is more strategic, more deliberate, and sometimes more subtle than all the rest. For some women, withholding a kiss during intimacy is about power. It's about control. It's about defining the terms of closeness in a way that allows them to stay in charge of the emotional dynamic. Now, when I say power, I don't mean manipulation in the cruel sense. I'm talking about agency, the ability to decide exactly how deep the connection will go and when. See, kissing, as we've discussed, often symbolizes a step into emotional vulnerability. But if a woman chooses not to take that step, even in the middle of physical intimacy, she is quietly setting the boundaries of the relationship. She is communicating, without words, "I decide how much of myself you get." This can happen for many reasons. Sometimes it's because she wants to keep the relationship in a certain lane, purely physical, undefined, or free from deeper commitment. Sometimes it's because she knows the other person craves that deeper connection, and by holding it back, she maintains a level of mystery, of pursuit. And sometimes it's simply because she understands that emotional intimacy is currency, and she doesn't want to spend it until she sees a return. It's important to remember that in the world of relationships, control isn't always about dominance. It's about self-preservation. If a woman has been in situations where she felt powerless, learning to control the pace and depth of connection can be a way of reclaiming that power. By deciding when, how, and to what extent she engages emotionally, she ensures she is not swept into something she isn't ready for. But here's where this gets complex. Power dynamics in intimacy can be both healthy and unhealthy. On the healthy side, they give a woman autonomy. She's not being led solely by the desires of the other person. She's leading herself, deciding what she's comfortable with, and creating space for the relationship to unfold on her terms. On the unhealthy side, withholding emotional connection as a way to keep control can sometimes become a defense mechanism that blocks true closeness. If the goal becomes simply to hold the upper hand, rather than to protect genuine emotional well-being, it can prevent both partners from experiencing the mutual trust and vulnerability that make intimacy meaningful. Think about if real connection requires balance. If one person is always in the position of guarding themselves, while the other is always reaching, eventually, the relationship stops feeling like a meeting of equals and starts feeling like a constant chase. The person doing the chasing may grow tired, and the person holding back may grow lonely, even if they were the one who created the distance in the first place. For some women, though, this balance of power is deeply intentional. They might say, "I know exactly what I'm doing. I want the physical connection without the complications of love." In that case, withholding a kiss becomes a tool, not of manipulation but of clarity. It sets a boundary, and that boundary keeps emotions in check. The challenge, of course, is that emotions are unpredictable. You can plan for your heart to stay detached, but proximity, touch, and shared experience have a way of stirring feelings you didn't intend to have. And once those feelings enter the picture, the very control you work to maintain starts to feel less certain. This is why I always say control is useful, but it should be flexible. A boundary is strongest when it is chosen freely and can be adjusted freely, not when it's enforced out of fear or stubbornness. If the only reason you withhold a kiss is to maintain a sense of dominance in the relationship, it's worth asking yourself what you fear might happen if you let that go. Because sometimes the thing we fear, losing control, is exactly what we need in order to experience something deeper. And this isn't just about women. Anyone who uses emotional withholding as a way to maintain the upper hand in intimacy should examine their motives. Is it really about protecting your heart? Or is it about ensuring you are never the more vulnerable one? If it's the latter, that's not protection. That's preemptive retreat. It's living in a constant posture of defense, even against people who haven't harmed you. There's a quiet truth here: intimacy is not a game to be won. The greatest power you can have in a relationship isn't the power to hold someone at arm's length. It's the power to let someone close and still feel secure. That kind of power comes not from control, but from trust in yourself. Trust that you can handle whatever happens. Trust that vulnerability won't destroy you, even if it hurts. If you've ever been in a position where you've withheld a kiss to maintain control, I'm not here to tell you to throw that boundary away. What I am saying is that you should make sure it's a boundary built on conscious choice, not just habit or fear. Because control can feel safe, but safety isn't the same thing as fulfillment. You can be in complete control and still feel empty. You can protect yourself so well that nothing, not even love, can reach you. And so, I'll leave you with this thought: control may give you peace of mind, but connection gives you life. If you find the courage to let go of a little control, You might just find something greater than safety. You might find the kind of intimacy that doesn't take your power away, but deepens it. The kind that makes you stronger, not weaker. The kind that reminds you that the real victory in love is not in winning, but in allowing yourself to be seen.